The predominant belief system of the West is one of science, reason, and materialism. These ideas are baked in from birth and child rearing as part of our culture, and then cemented in through the schooling indoctrination process. These are assumptions or obvious truths that are never questioned, much like questioning the existence of God. For someone who believes in God, all of their logic and reason is used under the umbrella of that belief. Religion says, obviously there is a God or a greater something that organized all of this, so using everything that we know, let's apply logic to understand what's happening here. Now, for someone who believes in science, all their logic is used under the umbrella of a mechanical or material universe. Science says, obviously this material universe exists and follows rules, so using everything that we know, let's apply logic to understand what's going on here. Do you see what these ideas or these belief systems are doing here? Both are using logic within the overarching assumption that can't be proved. Science cannot prove there is a material universe following the laws of cause and effect. In fact, science has practically proven that there's no such thing as matter or material, but that's a whole nother story. Just because we're experiencing it doesn't mean that it's real. Religion can't prove God exists or created the universe. It's also worth noting that one can operate logically under both umbrellas without contradiction. It's not contradictory to suggest a higher intelligence created a mechanical, material universe that follows rules. I'm going to spend some time pointing out the similarities between science and religion. The sooner we realize that they are both belief systems, the sooner we can understand each other. Perhaps if we better understand each other, we'll be less inclined to force beliefs on each other and resort to violence. Some might argue that religion produces violence not subject to logic and reason. If we were all just more logical and reasonable, then we wouldn't have to deal with as much violence, from religion or otherwise. As I stated earlier, I believe that the violence is a natural byproduct of being human, with deep tribal and survival conditioning. We're emotional creatures first, and logical creatures second. We use logic to justify what feels right to us. Could logic and reason help us overcome the conditioning and evolve? It certainly looks like a useful stepping stone to me, but I think the mistake is made when we cling to the stepping stone. This is a failure to learn, grow, and move up the evolutionary ladder. There is no end-all be-all. Everything is becoming. Logic and reason are useful tools to help us identify patterns on this journey. It's not correct to worship these tools as an ultimate authority and never abandon them. We have to abandon them in order to move forward on our journey past this stepping stone. Secular ideology holds underlying assumptions as sacred in the same way religion does. Things that are based on logic and reason shouldn't be questioned. People who suggest that something logical is wrong are viewed as crazy. To suggest something illogical is right is crazy talk as well, unless it can be explained using logic. Use logic to explain to me why logic is not always correct and not the highest form of thinking, is a demand that people often place on me. We seem to intuitively understand that many of life's mysteries are counterintuitive and can't be resolved with logic and reason. Is there a way to explain consciousness and love in logical terms? It hasn't been done yet. So if you believe that it's possible, that takes faith to believe something which hasn't been proven yet. We recognize in the past when thinking rationally has led us astray, yet the masses still use the same belief system to justify their thinking and actions, even while knowing that they are prone to catastrophic errors. They're critical of any ideologies that do not pass the scrutiny of logic and reason, even though their very own ideology does not. Those who have chosen their belief system without realizing it's a belief system tend to blame humanity's problems on those who think differently. I'm going to spend some time pointing out that the belief system of science and reason has just as many flaws as any other belief system. All belief systems are flawed. None can be proven without using logic under its own respective umbrella of assumption. Once we understand this, many other things will fall into place. Lots of people seem to believe that we're only filling in the blanks now and that we've got a good idea of what the big picture is. We couldn't possibly be looking at this whole thing upside down and find out everything we came to believe using logic and reason was in fact illusory. Could we? See, this is a belief. People seem to believe that humanity and its reason have a general idea of how things work. Never mind that we can't even explain our consciousness. Why is there a grand assumption that logic and reason are our best tools for understanding the world that we live in? These are simply the best tools we've reached a consensus on. Just because there is a consensus doesn't mean that it's right. It takes faith to believe the consensus is right. Rational men used to believe slavery was a good idea. These people are obviously less sophisticated than us. Look, they don't even have guns. And they're so much less civilized, they don't even have proper clothes like we do. It seems they're more like animals than us. So it's perfectly okay and logical to use them as we use animals to get work done on our farm. This used to be considered logical and reasonable. Logic evolves just as we do. Logic varies based on perspective. To believe that it will always yield a correct answer is pretty far from the truth. To believe that logic and reason are the best tools we have for understanding the world that we live in is a foundational belief in the ideology of science and reason. This sounds like a faith-based belief system to me. I do not believe that reason is the best tool for understanding reality. This strikes me as a non sequitur, sort of like saying a hammer is the best tool for building a house. Well, it certainly is a very helpful tool, but what about the saw? Why debate which one is better and try to get everyone else using the hammer? Screw that. Pun intended. On to part 3.